Okay, I'm going to get started today by just welcoming everyone. Welcome to Wat Tung. Nice to see all of you guys here. Welcome to everyone who's joining us online as well. Today is our group learning program, and we start with meditation to be able to help you guys build up your meditation practice. And then I'm going to move into a talk on today's topic. We're in chapter 2 of our book. We use this book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment, as our foundational text for this course, where each Sunday I go chapter by chapter, helping students to be able to understand the foundational teachings to make their way to enlightenment. The mental state that the Buddha helped others to be able to understand and be able to guide them to this mental state is called enlightenment. This particular mental state is where the mind is completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you will no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings and others are completely eliminated through training of the mind. And this is why we start our class with meditation. And then afterwards, I'm going to move into a talk on helping you to understand an introduction to the teachings of the Buddha and kind of looking at them from afar. So welcome to all of you guys, whether you're joining for the first time or you've been joining regularly. If you'd like to join for meditation, I start with chanting to ease us into the meditation. You can actually see the chants that I'm doing and even chant along if you'd like. Over there on the cabinet, I have a laminated sheet of the chants. You're welcome to help yourself to get a laminated sheet. For anybody who's online, you can see these chants on our website by going to buddhadailywisdom.com and click on free books. And if you scroll down towards the bottom, you'll see the chanting sheet there. If you look at these chants, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of that, I don't think that the Buddha actually created these chants himself, because an individual who's enlightened isn't going to go around with arrogance and pride and ego and say, here, chant these chants to me out of respect for me. So if you learn from a teacher how to move from the anger and the sadness and the frustration to this peaceful and joyful mental state that is enlightenment, you might actually have a lot of appreciation and respect for that person too, because the Buddha didn't want anything or expect anything from his students. He was just helping them to be able to understand how to get to this enlightened mental state. During the lifetime of the Buddha, they used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory, that every 2 weeks, his students would recite his teachings orally in order to be able to remember them, because by remembering the teachings, you can then practice the teachings. If you didn't have them committed to your memory, you wouldn't actually be able to practice them. And during the lifetime of the Buddha, they weren't able to write things down. They didn't have the technology to write things down, where today we have books and audiobooks, videos, podcasts, and all these different ways to remember the teachings and start to bring them in intellectually into the mind. They didn't have that during the lifetime of the Buddha. So they used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory. So with the origins of chanting, you can see that there isn't anything mystical or magical here. In the teachings of the Buddha, there aren't any rites or rituals or ceremonies, worship or prayer, any of these kinds of things. If you've been exposed to those kinds of things and been told that it's part of the teachings of the Buddha, you'll see in his original teachings that he never taught any of those kinds of things. So when I'm chanting, it's important to understand that it isn't a rite, a ritual, or a ceremony, or worship, or prayer, or anything like that. It helps us to ease the mind in the meditation and actually get more benefit out of the meditation itself. So if you would like to chant along, you're more than welcome to. After the chanting, I'm going to come in with some guidance to help you during the meditation, where you can actually be guided during the meditation for a period of time. I'm essentially going to be instructing you and teaching you how to meditate while we're actually meditating together. Then there's going to be a period of time where it's just quiet and we're all meditating together. Everyone here at the temple and anybody who's joining online, we'll just all be meditating at the same time. Now, I'm sure during this period of quietness, you're going to hear occasional sounds. You might hear a car go by, a bird chirping, a dog barking. Someone could cough or sneeze here at the temple. You're not going to be able to be in an environment where it's permanently quiet. The world around you is constantly changing. It is impermanent. But if you crave permanent silence, when you hear a sound during meditation, you will cause your mind to be annoyed or frustrated. This is your own mind that's causing that. It's not the outside world that's causing your mind to be angry or frustrated or sad or any of these other discontent feelings. It's the mind craving permanence and wanting things to be a certain way permanently, when in reality you live in an impermanent world. So during that period of time of quietness, if you hear a sound, just understand that it is impermanent. It will arise, it will change, and it will fade away. And this is the world functioning exactly the way it was intended to function based on these natural laws. Then after that period of time of quietness, we're going to come out of the meditation with some more chanting. And that's where I'll start today's class, helping you guys to understand an introduction to the teachings of the Buddha. In terms of your body position for meditation, there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught: seated, lying, standing, and walking. And you would learn these different positions at different times in your journey to enlightenment. It's kind of like creating a tool belt for yourself to be able to have these different tools available to you, because your body's not going to be able to permanently be in exactly the same position. It's just not possible. So you're going to need these different tools at different times. But oftentimes people are learning in the seated position. So I'm going to provide you some guidance on that to help you get started and just for some things to consider. But understand that what I share with you, it isn't like it's a rule or anything like that. You need to find whatever's comfortable for you. So however you feel is comfortable for you to sit, you can sit in that way, because you're training the mind. You're not training the body. But what I'll share with you are just some suggestions that you might consider to find some more comfort based on how you're sitting. You could sit on the floor, you could sit in a chair. Maybe if you're at home, you're on a sofa or a bench or a wheelchair. Any of these kinds of ways, you can sit however you like. If you're on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. This is going to kind of soften your seat for you. And then if you're going to bring your legs together in the cross leg position, you might just decide to do that lightly, because that will ensure that the circulation can continue to flow and it won't cause pain in the lower body. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets your hips up in the air and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles. So if that's comfortable for you, you could do it that way as well. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable for you, you could do it this way. But again, it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. There's other options here. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or on their knees. Some people put their palms up or even rest their hands comfortably in their lap. So you find whatever's comfortable for you. And if you're in a chair, or maybe if you're at home, you're on a bench or a sofa or a wheelchair, you can also sit however you're comfortable. Sometimes people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly cross at the ankles, but you can see me sitting in a chair here with my legs crossed, so this is also an option as well. In terms of your hands and arms, you can put those wherever you like as well, just like I guided earlier. In terms of your upper body, you would like this to be erect, with the sternum up and the shoulders back. It's going to help keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation so that you can actively train the mind. This is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities. So you would like the mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation. So having the sternum up and the shoulders back will ensure that your mind is attentive and alert so that you can actively train it. Whereas if you were slouched, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So you'd like the upper body to be erect with the sternum up and shoulders back, because not only does it keep the mind attentive and alert, but it also helps you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So again, I'm going to ease us into meditation with some chanting, which you guys are welcome to join in on. And then I'm going to come back in with some guidance to be able to help you. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Bhutang Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato สัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสภะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดามาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังโพโตภะคะวะติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect. Just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled. Just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go. and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเกวาโพตังมหาเกวันนังอภิวาเตมิสาวกขาโตมหาเกวัตตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเกวัตโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเกวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาธัมมาสติสัตตาตวามนุสนังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to everyone. Nice to see everyone here this morning. Welcome to everyone joining us online as well. Nice to have everyone join us. Today's class, as I mentioned, is part of our group learning program where each Sunday I get together with students and gradually helping them to develop a foundation in the path to enlightenment through going through this book, Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment, chapter by chapter each Sunday. You can actually get this book at no cost. You can download it from our website. You can take it and go print it. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for the printing costs, so we can use that to purchase new books, or you can order it on Amazon. This is going to help you to gradually build up your practice to be able to make your way to enlightenment. What the Buddha did during his lifetime is he figured out how to get to this enlightened mental state, and then he spent the last 45 years of his life, from the age of 35 to 80, sharing with people what he did in order to be able to get to that enlightened mental state, so that you can actually do that as well. It's through gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress that one would move their mind to enlightenment. One of the biggest myths about the life story of the Buddha is that people sometimes think he sat under a tree, he meditated, and he instantly got to enlightenment. And this isn't actually true. If you study his original teachings, you'll actually see that it's through this gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. There aren't any beliefs in the teachings of the Buddha. You're learning, examining, investigating his teachings, you're reflecting on them to independently verify them, and you're practicing them, integrating them into your day-to-day life. And as you're training your mind through these practices that he taught, you're uprooting certain pollutions in the mind that he discovered. And as you're eliminating these pollutions out of the mind, that's where the peace and the joy comes in. Because by the time you get to enlightenment, your mind will be completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. As I was mentioning, the enlightened mind doesn't experience any of those discontent feelings. All the anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy, all of this and others is eliminated from the mind. Because because you've eliminated the pollutions of the mind, you'll notice that the mind is focused and concentrated. You'll have clarity of mind and deep memory, that your mind won't even experience a bad mood any longer. You'll notice that your personal, professional relationships are really blossoming, that they're at ease, that you don't have this bitterness and harshness and hostility in your day-to-day relationships any longer, because you've purified your mind and you're no longer functioning that way. But as long as you're putting out the bitterness, the harshness, the hostility, this is what's going to be coming back to you in your relationships. So by you purifying your mind and training your mind, this is what's actually going to lead to improvement in your day-to-day life. Today's chapter of our book is actually chapter 2. Chapter 2 is titled Why Study Gotama Buddha's Teachings. And if you've read the book, or if you plan to read the book, you'll see my thoughts on this. And I share with people why it's important to study his teachings. Essentially, during the lifetime of the Buddha, there was only one reason to study his teachings, and that was to get to enlightenment, to get to this enlightened mental state. Because going around the world feeling stress and anxiety and frustration and all these other discontent feelings that you experience, it's no fun. It can feel quite miserable at times. And what people tend to think in the unenlightened state is that these feelings are coming from other people. You might think that other people are causing you to experience a certain feeling, but this isn't actually true. And you can see this through studying the teachings of the Buddha and independently verifying what he taught, that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. So the reason to study his teachings is to get to this enlightened mental state. Typically, when I teach this class, which I teach in the morning here at the temple and I teach it online at home, what I do is I kind of lead a discussion and kind of talk with the students about why is it that they've chosen to study the teachings of the Buddha. But I'm going to do that this evening because the students who study with me online in the evening are people who are showing up regularly. We're here, we have people who show up regularly as well, but a lot of times people are brand new that are coming here because they might be in town for a certain period of time. So what I decide to do today for this class in this particular venue where there's a lot of new people is I'm going to share with you what the teachings of the Buddha are and what the teachings of the Buddha are not, so that you can understand more about the teachings of the Buddha. It's kind of like an introduction to the teachings of the Buddha, kind of looking at them from afar. And in order to be able to help you to understand this, I'm going to first help you to understand what is an actual Buddha, because oftentimes people don't even understand what an actual Buddha is. So a Buddha meets three primary criteria. A Buddha has gotten to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. They also then, at that time, share the rest of their teachings, or they dedicate the rest of their life to sharing their independently discovered teachings with countless people. And countless people will get to enlightenment during that person's lifetime. Then they will preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people will get to enlightenment after their death. So these are the three primary criteria of what make a Buddha, is that they get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. They then dedicate the rest of their life to sharing their independently discovered teachings with countless people, and countless people will get to enlightenment during that person's lifetime. They will then preserve their teachings in such a way that countless more people will get to enlightenment after their death. So this is very rare for a Buddha to exist in the world. You can get to enlightenment and you would be an enlightened being at that point, but you wouldn't be an actual Buddha. The Buddha says that it's very rare for a Buddha to exist in the world because to meet these three criteria is very rare. Oftentimes you might hear other people tell you that everybody is a Buddha, but this isn't actually true. The Buddha never actually said this. He taught how rare it is that a Buddha would actually exist in the world. There's other criteria of what makes a Buddha is that they have a very profound memory, far beyond what anybody else would ever experience. A Buddha has the ability to remember countless details about their current life and their previous lives as well. And this is what allows them to actually get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides, is they accumulate wisdom over multiple lifetimes to be able to apply that in their last life to be able to help them get to enlightenment. One of the ways you might think about this is like a hard drive of a computer. A hard drive has a certain limited capacity. And when it gets to its full capacity, an individual needs to delete the old files in order to be able to store new files. And that's what your mind has, is you have a limited capacity. And this is why if you think back to your childhood, you only have spotty memories. That in the last 5-10 years or so, you might remember what you've been up to and what you've been doing. But if you think back to your childhood, you just have spotty memories. because you've had to delete those files in order to store the new files that you're experiencing. But an individual who's going to become a Buddha, they don't have that they don't have that limited capacity. They have an unlimited capacity where they can actually remember countless details about their current life and their past lives too. And this is how they're able to get to enlightenment without the help of any teachers or any guides. They also can quickly determine the condition of someone's mind by spending time with that individual. And then at that point, if that's a student, they would actually be able to share teachings with that person to be able to help them to journey on the path to enlightenment. This is one of the reasons why a Buddha is so effective at helping countless people get to enlightenment, is that they can observe the quality of an individual's mind by just spending time with them and then offering them teachings that are going to help them to be able to progress on the path to enlightenment. But they wouldn't give unsolicited guidance. It wouldn't just kind of peer into somebody's life and start giving them guidance. It would only be a student who would be actively seeking that guidance that a Buddha would then share that with them. And then a Buddha is going to be a living, breathing, walking example of their teachings. Whatever they teach, they're also going to be practicing that as well, because a Buddha understands that their students are learning just as much through their spoken words as they are through their actions as well. So a Buddha will be practicing the teachings that they actually teach because their students are learning from that. So if they're teaching something in terms of speech, they're going to be speaking in that way as well, or in terms of their actions, they're going to be acting in that same way through their bodily actions. So they're not going to be teaching one thing and doing something exactly the opposite. They're going to be a living, breathing, walking example of their teachings. So this is what a Buddha is, and these are the criteria that a Buddha actually meets. And we refer to this individual as a fully, perfectly enlightened one, because by the time an individual gets to enlightenment as a Buddha, what they know in terms of the path to enlightenment is the path to enlightenment. And then they spend the rest of their life essentially illuminating that path for countless other people. They're putting lights along the side of the path by describing what it takes to be able to get to enlightenment. So by the time a Buddha gets to enlightenment, they know and understand and have deep wisdom about the path to enlightenment. So for example, if a Buddha was practicing certain meditation and it was working to improve the condition of their mind, they would know that that is the path to enlightenment. Whereas if they tried a certain meditation and it wasn't working to improve the condition of their mind, they would discard it. So by the time they get to enlightenment, what they know about the path to enlightenment is very deep and very profound. Where an individual who's learning from a teacher, they will sometimes hold on to certain teachings or certain practices that didn't necessarily lead to their enlightenment, but they're still holding on to those things and still practicing them. So someone might actually get to enlightenment as an enlightened being, and maybe 80 or 90% of what they're actually doing led to their enlightenment, but they still have a little bit of extra baggage, for example, of things that didn't actually lead to their enlightenment, but they're still doing those things, maybe out of respect for their teacher. And this is why we refer to an individual who's a Buddha as a fully, perfectly enlightened one, because they don't actually have that extra baggage. What they understand as the path to enlightenment is the path to enlightenment. And then they share it with others to be able to understand that path. So as I go today, I'm going to be pausing at a few times to be able to help you guys to ask any questions, and I'll answer those for you. If you would like to ask questions, you can do that here at the temple by using the microphones in the white bowl here in the middle of the room. If you could just get a microphone and press the gray button, the lights will come on, and you can hold this up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. If you spoke here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And then if you get one of these microphones, you can just keep it with you, because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question, and you can share the microphone with them. And for those of you guys that are online, if you would like to ask a question, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and unmute your microphone to ask any questions there. And if you guys get one of these microphones and you're not using it, if you could just turn it off, that'll help to ensure we don't get any feedback through the speakers. So this is what a Buddha actually is. These are the three criteria of a Buddha. And as I shared, it's very rare for a Buddha to exist in the world. The last Buddha that the world is currently aware of existed over 2,500 years ago. This is the individual that I refer to as Gotama Buddha, but he's referred to in other ways as well. Some people might just say the Buddha, or there's other ways to refer to him as well. Now, in terms of helping you to understand what the teachings of the Buddha are, is the teachings of the Buddha are a path to attaining enlightenment in this life through purification of the mind. You're purifying the mind through uprooting pollutions that the Buddha discovered in the mind. There's 10 individual pollutions. These are referred to as the 10 fetters. The Buddha referred to them as a fetter because during his lifetime, if you were a prisoner and they were trying to keep you confined to a certain area, they would attach a fetter around your ankle. This was a shackle and a chain and a ball, and they would just basically keep you in a field. And this is how they would ensure that you wouldn't escape. Where today we put prisoners in jail cells or prison cells, but during the lifetime of the Buddha, they would put a fetter around your ankle. So when the Buddha discovered these 10 individual pollutions, he refers to them as a fetter, or the 10 fetters, because it's keeping the mind trapped in this unenlightened state where it's experiencing this anger and sadness and frustration and all these other discontent feelings over and over and over and over and over again. So what you're doing on this path is you're using the tools and techniques that the Buddha taught in order to purify the mind of these 10 fetters. And as these 10 fetters are gradually reducing, you'll be able to see the qualities of enlightenment shining through more and more. While we talk about it as attaining enlightenment, one of the ways you might think about it is that the mind is already enlightened, and it's just because these pollutions are in the way that you can't experience the qualities of the enlightened mind. The analogy you might think about is like if you had the sun and it was trying to shine, but there was clouds in front of it, you wouldn't be able to see the rays of the sun and experience the rays of the sun. But as you peel away those clouds, the rays of the sun will slowly start shining through, and you'll experience more and more of the rays of the sun. It's the same thing that as you're eliminating these pollutions out of the mind, the qualities of enlightenment start to shine through. You start getting glimpses of the enlightened mind, where maybe for a few minutes or a few hours or a few days, you can experience the qualities of enlightenment. But then because the mind still has pollution, it's only a matter of time before you experience some kind of frustration or agitation or annoyance or some other discontent feeling. So this enlightened mental state is a mental state that you can attain in this life, or you can attain it at death. It's a permanent mental state that you're experiencing all throughout the rest of your life. By the time you get to enlightenment, it's physically impossible for you to experience any of these feelings. You will no longer experience any anger, sadness, frustration, or any of these others, because the causes and conditions that are producing them have been uprooted and eliminated out of the mind through training of the mind. As I share, there's a deep focus and concentration, clarity, and deep memory in the mind because the mind's been purified of these pollutions. The personal and professional relationships are really improving. They're really blossoming. They're at ease. You'll notice that you have deep wisdom where you can be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful to all beings. Right now, you might find that to be a bit challenging. There might be certain situations where you're maybe disrespectful or impolite or unkind or unfriendly to people, but this is coming from your own mind. Sometimes people think that that's coming from other people, but it's actually your own mind that's producing that. It's not other people that are causing you to be impolite, unkind, unfriendly, and disrespectful. So you can purify your mind of the causes and conditions that are producing this so that you can get to the point where all your relationships are really blossoming, to the point where you're not even experiencing a bad mood any longer. And the way that this is happening is through awakening to the natural laws of existence, namely the natural law of Gama. Some people refer to this as karma. This is the Sanskrit version of this word. The word Gama comes from the Pali language, and the original teachings of the Buddha are in the Pali language. So people who study his original teachings will tend to use the Pali word of Gama. What this word is cause and effect, or action and result. It's the results of your decisions. Whenever you make decisions either wisely or unwisely, you will experience either wholesome Gama or wholesome results, or unwholesome Gama or unwholesome results. There's nothing mystical or magical with the natural law of Gama. It's not about punishments and rewards. It's not about who's at fault or who's to blame. Instead, it's just like a sequence of events that whenever you make decisions and you put those out into the world, there's going to be a certain effect or a certain result that you experience. And this is the cause and effect, or the action and result. If this word Gama translated to just one English word, I would use that because it'd be easier for everyone. But since it doesn't, I still need to use this word karma, that it means cause and effect, or action and result. And what you're doing on this path is you're learning, examining, and investigating the natural laws, namely the natural law of karma. You're reflecting on it to independently verify whether it's true or it's false. And then you're practicing, making wiser and wiser decisions through training your mind and making wise decisions in your relationships. You're not interested in believing in this natural law or any of the other natural laws that the Buddha taught. As we were growing up, we struggled and had difficulties with the natural laws. You might still be having certain difficulty with this particular natural law, the natural law of karma. But all of us experienced a natural law that we struggled and had difficulties with. But now you don't struggle with that natural law anymore because you've cultivated wisdom about it. And that's what I'm sharing with you here with the natural law of karma, that you need to cultivate wisdom about this natural law. The natural law that all of us didn't understand, that you now understand, is the natural law of gravity. This natural law is something that you don't believe in. You know with 100% certainty that it exists. But when we were a child, we didn't understand this natural law. We struggled and had difficulties with this natural law. We fell down, we hit our head, we bumped our elbows, we broke our toys. We had all kinds of difficulties with this natural law of gravity. And we cried and cried and cried. We were so upset. But slowly but surely, we gained wisdom of this natural law. And we didn't believe in it. We could see that it was true. You can still see that it's true. If you look, you can actually independently verify that the natural law of gravity is actually real. And it's the same thing with the natural law of karma, that you're going to need to be able to independently verify that it's true. Because when you awoke to the wisdom of the natural law of gravity, you don't struggle anymore. You can get to the point where you can climb ladders, you can ride bicycles, you can get on airplanes and fly all over the world because you fully awoke, meaning you fully cultivated wisdom about the natural law of gravity. Well, there's other natural laws that are affecting you. And just like you no longer struggle with that natural law, you can get to the point where you don't struggle with these others. Because the stress and the anxiety and the frustration and the guilt and the shame and fear and all these other discontent feelings, this is just the mind struggling because it lives in a world that it doesn't understand. And when you live in a world that you don't understand, when you lack wisdom of the world around you, you will experience these discontent feelings, just like you did with the natural law of gravity. But you don't have those same types of experiences anymore because you fully awoke to the wisdom of the natural law of gravity. And that's why you don't struggle with it anymore. So this natural law of karma is something that you're going to need to learn, you're going to need to reflect, independently verify, and you're going to need to practice it. And as you do, what you're going to see through these natural laws that the Buddha shares with you is that he's explaining to you the way the world is. The Buddha didn't explain to you the way the world should be, and that if everybody follows certain rules and commandments, the world's going to become a more peaceful place. He's explaining to you the way the world is. And when you understand the way the world is through these natural laws, you can navigate the world peacefully and with ease because you're no longer struggling, having difficulties living in a world that you don't understand. So it's through training the mind to experience complete peace by acquiring wisdom of these natural laws so that you can live in the world and understand the world and you can navigate this world. But when you're feeling anger and sadness and frustration, that's your mind craving permanence, wanting things to be a certain way permanently, where in reality, you live in an impermanent world. So if your mind has a craving, a longing, a yearning, a desire for things to be a certain way, when it's that way, you will experience pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. And when things aren't happening the way you want or the way you expect them to happen, that's where you'll experience the painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. So as long as you have a misunderstanding of what's causing these feelings, you will keep experiencing them over and over. So you can independently verify that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, that it's not other people. Because you can take examples. You can think about when you were a child, how you really wanted chocolate and ice cream. And when your parents gave you chocolate and ice cream, you were so happy and so excited. But then when they didn't give it to you, you were angry or frustrated. This wasn't your parents that was causing that. That was your own mind, because your mind wanted this chocolate and ice cream and it wasn't getting what it wanted. You can look at it with a boyfriend or girlfriend. If you've been together with a boyfriend or girlfriend, when you first get together, you're so happy and so excited because you're getting what you want, which is this affection from this person. And you don't really have any expectations early on in the relationship. But as the relationship goes on, you have all these wants and expectations of things you want from this person, and they can't fulfill that for you permanently. So by the time you get to the end of this relationship where you guys break up, now you're really angry and you're frustrated, or you might be lonely or bored, or you might be missing this individual. This is your mind craving permanence, wanting them to be in your life permanently. It's not your love that's causing this. This is the mind craving permanence and wanting things to be a certain way, wanting this person to be in your life permanently. Love is a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. It's not going to cause your mind to be angry or frustrated. It's the mind craving permanence and wanting this person to be in your life permanently, when in reality, everything around you is impermanent. This is one of the natural laws, that everything around you is constantly changing. But the unenlightened mind is going to crave for things to be permanent. So if it's sunny outside, you'll be really happy. But then when it rains, you'll be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. That's just change. That's all that occurred. But the mind's craving the sun, and it's happy when it gets the sun, but then it's frustrated or agitated when it's raining. And you can see that there's not another person that's causing your mind to be discontent, because there's not even another person involved. The only thing that's happened is it went from sunny to rain. Or if you get really happy when your bank account balance is up here, when it goes down here, you'll be frustrated or agitated or annoyed. Again, you can see that it's not other people that are causing you to be angry or frustrated, because there's no other person involved. It's just change. And the unenlightened mind doesn't understand the world is full of impermanence and things are constantly changing. It craves permanence. It's wanting things to be permanent. So you can look at your own life and see examples of where you've been angry or frustrated or agitated, to be able to independently verify what I'm sharing with you. Because remember, the teachings of the Buddha aren't based in belief. You can look at maybe something that happened this morning or yesterday or last week. Now, at that time, you might have been trying to blame somebody else, because that's what the mind typically does in the unenlightened state, is it blames other people for the feelings that you're experiencing. But now, take a moment and try to independently verify what I'm sharing with you. Look at that recent situation where you were angry or frustrated or agitated or annoyed. What was it that your mind wanted? What were you longing, yearning for? What was the expectation that you had? And if you would have got that, you would have been happy. But because you didn't get what you wanted, your mind was angry or frustrated or sad. So you can see this for yourself if you peer into it. And if you have trouble to see it, let me know, because I've had plenty of students over the years ask me questions. They'll say, David, how did my mind cause my own discontentedness? Please help me to see this. Right? I've had students say, they went to work and their house looked beautiful. And when they came home, their wife had a craft project all over the house. And when they came home, they were angry and frustrated. They said, how did I cause my own frustration? I wasn't even there. It was my wife who messed up the house. Didn't she cause me to be frustrated? And the answer is no. The thing is that the mind craved this house to look a certain way permanently. And when they went to work, they had a certain expectation that it was going to look exactly that same way when they came home. And when they came home, all they were experiencing was impermanence, that things had changed, because it's not possible for this house to look a certain way permanently. So now when they came home with that craving for permanence and they saw something different than what they expected, their mind caused its own frustration, its own agitation. So an individual needs to be able to look at their own life to be able to independently verify what I'm sharing with you. Because I'm not here to convince you of anything. I'm not here to pressure or force you to do anything at all. I'm here to help you see true reality. And if you're willing to peer into it and look at true reality, you'll be able to see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And the reason why this is important is that if you continue to believe that other people are causing your mind to be angry and frustrated, you'll just be angry and frustrated for the rest of your life. But if you can peer through this and see true reality and have a breakthrough and see that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings, then you can actually apply a solution to actually be able to fix it. If you don't understand what's causing these feelings, then you'll never be able to fix it. Because what the unenlightened mind tends to do when it doesn't understand the true cause of these feelings is it'll push people away, thinking that that's going to solve the problem. This is called aversion, where you push people away or you push the situation away. You might have pushed away friends or family in your life, thinking that that's going to solve your problems. But you can see it didn't solve your problem because you still get angry. You still get frustrated. You still get annoyed. If it was that person that was causing you to be angry, when you push them out of your life, you would be peaceful from that point forward. But you see that that's not the case. Or the second thing you'll do when you don't understand what the true cause of your feelings are is you might be bitter and harsh and hostile towards people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring at another animal, trying to fear it into doing things your way. And that's the mind trying to get its cravings fulfilled. Or you might put your expectations on people and try to control them and force them and pressure them to do things your way. In fact, you might have people that are doing this to you. And this just leads to broken relationships, because as long as you're pushing people away, you're being bitter, harsh, and hostile to people, and you're putting your expectations on people to try to control them, you're not going to be able to live with all beings harmoniously, because it's only a matter of time before someone does something that you disagree with. And if you can only exist peacefully with people who do things your way, then again, it's only a matter of time before someone does something different than you, because you are the only person who does things your way. We live in a world full of impermanence, and there's going to be countless different ways to do things. But if you just crave permanence and you crave for everyone to do things your way, then you'll continue to struggle and have difficulties in your day-to-day life. So the Buddha is helping you to be able to see that through these natural laws and training your mind to understand these natural laws. Now, when you have the wisdom of them, you can navigate the world peacefully and joyfully. Additionally, the Buddha's teachings are timeless. That whatever he spoke about 2,500 years ago, it's the same thing that you need to know now in order to be able to get to enlightenment. He spoke very clear, very concise, and very precise. You don't need to interpret his teachings. You don't need to figure out what he actually taught. If you study his original teachings, you'll be able to see that they're very clear and very concise and very precise. He's explaining these natural laws, and these natural laws don't change. From 2,500 years ago, it's the exact same natural laws. So that's why his teachings are timeless. And as you learn and grow and develop those understanding of those teachings, you'll be able to awaken to the wisdom of these natural laws. The Buddha did teach about the cycle of rebirth and the 5 realms of existence, like hell, the animal realm, the afflicted spirit realm, the human realm, and the heavenly realm. And he taught these things for a reason. Firstly, because it's true reality, and this is what truly is occurring. But he taught you these things because as you're purifying your mind and uprooting the pollution out of your mind, there's the potential that you could have memories of your past lives. And if you start having memories of your past lives and you didn't understand that that's what that was, it could really shake you up. So for example, if you started having memories of being murdered, and you start having these recurring vivid memories of being murdered, this could really shake you up if you didn't understand that that was past life, and you can just put it aside. You can put it behind you and just kind of leave it to the side. You don't need to dwell in those thoughts. But if you didn't understand that and you just believe that you only have one life, when you start having these vivid memories of your past lives, it could really shake you up. Or as you're training your mind and you're lifting this pollution out of your mind, some people can actually see these formless beings from the hell realm, the afflicted spirit realm, which are like ghosts, or the heavenly realm. Some people can actually see these beings. And if you started seeing these beings and you didn't understand that this was true reality, that this is actually truly what's happening, you could actually be shaken up and you could think that you're maybe going crazy. Or some people can actually have communication with these beings, where you can actually hear these beings. And just like you're at a table in a restaurant and 2 tables over, somebody could be talking kind of loud and you can learn to ignore that. It's the same thing with these beings in these other realms. If you're hearing communication from those beings, you can learn how to ignore that. But again, if you didn't understand that this is true reality and this is the way the world actually works, you could actually think you're going crazy in these situations. So the Buddha taught the cycle of rebirth and the 5 realms of existence for a reason, because it's true and it can be independently verified. In this book series that I share of 13 books, in volume 11, chapter 105, I have 17 different criteria that I share with you of how to independently verify the cycle of rebirth. But it's in volume 11, chapter 105 for a reason, because it's not something that you need to approach right up front in your journey to enlightenment. So what I suggest people do is they just set it to the side, because you need to really focus on the core central teachings of the Buddha, which are things like the 3 universal truths, the 4 noble truths, the Eightfold Path, the 5 precepts, the 10 fetters, extensive meditation training, and things like this. This is where you would like to really focus on. But he did teach these things because he taught them for a reason, because it's true reality. And if you didn't understand the world around you, you could have difficulties navigating this world. Sometimes people think the Buddha did not teach about God. Some people will go as far as say that the Buddha rejected God or he denied the existence of God. And this isn't actually true. The Buddha did teach about this being. You can see in his original teachings that he taught about this particular being. But he didn't put this being at the center and the focal point of his teachings, because it's not this being that decides whether you actually get to enlightenment or not. It's your decisions that decide whether or not you get to enlightenment. So he put you at the center of his teachings. But he did teach about this being, because during his lifetime, people believed in multiple gods. So he taught about this being of God. And you can see it in his original teachings. If someone says the Buddha denied the existence of God or rejected God, this is an individual that hasn't studied his original teachings very closely, because you can see it all throughout the Buddha's teachings. But he just doesn't put God at the focal point of his teachings, because it's not God that decides whether you actually get to enlightenment or not. It's you that decides that based on your own independent decisions. So he puts you at the center of his teachings. And then in terms of the teachings of the Buddha, the largest, most complete collection of his teachings is in something called the Pali Canon. This Pali Canon is 45 volumes of books that are about this thick. This is the original words of the Buddha. And today we've translated that into other languages, and I share it in English. This book series that I share is a consolidated version of the Pali Canon, where the average person doesn't actually study the Pali Canon. The vast majority of the world, they would study based on the oral tradition. And this is really unfortunate, because of this, we don't see massive numbers of enlightened beings in the world, because people are grossly misunderstanding the teachings of the Buddha in many cases, because people don't typically study with the original source teachings of the Buddha. They've really been hidden for a long time, not overtly, but just inadvertently. Because of these 45 large volumes of books, it's very costly to have a printed version of the Pali Canon for yourself. Here in Thailand, it would cost you about 3 months of your salary if you were going to acquire a set of the Pali Canon. And you probably don't own any book collection worth 3 months of your salary. So the average person, the average temple, doesn't actually study with the original words of the Buddha. So there's a lot of misunderstandings in the world about his teachings. But this particular book series that I share, it's consolidated this. And I refer to it as the words of the Buddha, the path to enlightenment, revealing the hidden, because it's revealing these hidden teachings of the Buddha, where you can gain understanding of his teachings, and you can actually get it for free by downloading it from our website, by taking it and go printing it, by getting printed versions here, or you can get it on Amazon. So shortly after the death of the Buddha, they started documenting his teachings, where during his lifetime it was all an oral tradition, and they used chanting as a way to commit it to memory. The technology to write things down made its way to that region of the world shortly after the death of the Buddha, and this is when they started documenting his teachings. By the time you get to enlightenment, whatever it took for you to get to enlightenment, you won't actually forget those teachings. You will never forget that. You will have it in your mind all the way through the rest of your life. So during the lifetime of the Buddha, countless people had gotten to enlightenment. 500 of them came together shortly after his death to be able to document his teachings. And they agreed that this was his actual teachings. And that's what we refer to today as the Pali Canon. In this book series that I share consolidates that for you in a way that you can approach it and understand it and make real progress on this path. Because as you're making progress on this path, you'll be able to know that that's what you're doing, because you'll be able to see situations where you were once angry or sad or frustrated. You'll see that you're in those same exact situations and your mind doesn't experience that any longer. So you'll see the gradual qualities of enlightenment increasing, and you'll see this discontentedness gradually decreasing over time as you're training your mind. So just to kind of cap off what the Buddha actually taught and what his teachings are, the one way that you might think about the teachings of the Buddha is that it's to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. That's what the teachings of the Buddha are, is to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. By the time you get to enlightenment, you won't experience any painful feelings ever again. But what's hurting you is inside your own mind. It's not the outside world. Oftentimes people go around and try to change the outside world. Whereas if you're not working on your mind and purifying your mind, then you're not actually addressing the root of the true problem. Growing up as children, we all understood how to clean our body. This is something that we learn, is how to clean our body. And we do that regularly because it feels comfortable to have cleaned this body. But if we went several days or several weeks or several years without cleaning our body, it would feel very uncomfortable to walk around the world in that way. Well, there's more than just this physical body to this being who you are. There's also the mind. And if you haven't learned how to clean your mind, you've been walking around with this polluted mind, with this dirty mind. And it's going to feel very uncomfortable walking around with that mind. Just like it's uncomfortable to walk around with a dirty body, it's going to be uncomfortable to walk around with this dirty mind. So if you haven't learned how to clean your mind growing up as a child, perhaps now you might decide that this is a time for you to learn how to do that, so that now by purifying your mind, you'll see more and more peace and more joy coming through in your day-to-day life, because everything you experience is happening through your mind. It's kind of like the CPU of a computer, that as you're experiencing life, everything that's going through your mind, that's what you're experiencing, that you're experiencing what's going through your mind. So I'm going to pause here and see if you guys have any questions on what I've been sharing so far about what the teachings of the Buddha are. And then after any questions that you guys might have, I'm going to share with you what the teachings of the Buddha are not, because that's one of the ways to help you understand what the teachings of the Buddha are. So are there any questions here at the temple or any questions online that you guys would like to ask? Remember, if you guys could use the microphones here, and then online you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. So it looks like, ma'am, you have a question? You have a microphone? Mm-hmm. It's on. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds like it's on to me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you're not going to get to enlightenment by changing your outside environment. That's not the way to get to enlightenment. You can't create a bubble to live in this bubble, and then you're going to get to peace and joy inside this bubble, because then as soon as you're outside the bubble, you're not peaceful and joyful anymore. So if somebody went off to a cave and they lived in a cave for 10 years and they thought they were pretty enlightened, as soon as they come out of their cave, they're going to be frustrated and agitated and annoyed. So when people learn about the life story of the Buddha and they understand that he went off on his own away from his family and he even went into the forest for a period of time, they think that he was just kind of isolated into himself. And this isn't actually true, that he encountered people every single day because that's how he got food. He wasn't able to eat if he didn't have food from the outside world. So you're not going to get to enlightenment by changing the outside world. The way that you get to enlightenment is by changing the inner world inside the mind. But if you don't have the wisdom of how to do that, that's where you'll struggle. And you mentioned a bunch of different cravings, that you're craving for food, or you're craving for validation from people, or you're craving for social contact. You can learn how to do these things without craving, desire, attachment, because it's not the object itself that is the craving, desire, attachment. So it's not the food that is the problem. It's not the person who is the problem. It's not the outside world. It's the mind that has a lack of training, where it's longing, yearning for the food. So for example, using that example of food, there's certain food that you like, right? And you tend to gravitate towards this food. And then there's certain food that you don't like, and you kind of push that away and you try to avoid that food. That's called sensual desire, where the mind is longing, yearning for agreeable contact through the tongue. It wants this agreeable contact, and you see these flavors as agreeable, and you see these flavors as disagreeable. But the mind needs to understand in permanence that you're not going to be able to experience permanently agreeable contact through the tongue. And you need to be able to train your mind and put it in these situations of things that it's currently seeing as disagreeable. So for example, at one time I didn't like durian fruit. I thought it was horrible. It smelled like poop. When I put it in my mouth, it had the consistency of poop, even though I've never had poop in my mouth, but I just envisioned that this is what the consistency of poop would be like. So I tried to avoid this kind of fruit, right? Well, that's not going to lead to your enlightenment. That's aversion. That's pushing things away, pushing situations away. So you need to actually put your mind in that situation where you're tasting that particular fruit, and train your mind to be just as peaceful and have just as much joy and satisfaction in eating one thing versus another. You need to be able to view this food as just something to nourish the body. The food is not to please the mind. That's what people tend to do in the unenlightened state, is they think that this food is to please the tongue and please the mind. So now they chase after food that they see to be as agreeable and that they like, and they try to avoid foods that they find to be disagreeable. And it's not just food that this is happening with. This is people, this is experiences, this is fabrics on your body, this is all kinds of different things that the mind is having longing, yearning, and craving, and it's seeing certain things as agreeable and certain things as disagreeable, and it pushes away. So you're going to need to be able to understand the full path to enlightenment, training your mind, cultivating the wisdom. And this is what's going to lead to your enlightenment, is through inner training of the mind, not through changing your outside world. There might be changes that you need to make to your life. I'm sure there are, but it's not through creating this, perfect bubble for yourself that you're going to experience enlightenment. Because as soon as you're outside of that bubble, your mind's going to be discontent. And because things are impermanent, you're not going to be able to permanently reside inside this bubble. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're not completely isolated from the world. They're still in the world. They're just living in the temple where things are kind of shut down to a certain degree. And now their mind has an opportunity to let go more easily. So, for example, if you're living in a household life, you're more likely to be attached to your life partner, to your children, to your comforts of your house, to your relationships, your job, your money, and all of these different things. But when you go into an environment where those things are stripped away, then your mind has an opportunity to let go. Because what you do on this path, and you can do it from the ordained lifestyle living in a temple, and you can do it from the household life as well. What you do is anything that your mind is getting pleasant feelings from, which are conditioned pleasant feelings, where based on this condition, you're going to experience happiness or excitement. You would like to distance yourself from those objects in order to be able to train your mind to let them go. Then anything that you have aversion to, that you're pushing away, you would actually like to bring that into your life and train your mind to be peaceful and joyful with that particular thing. And then over time, as you train your mind to not have this favoring and opposing or this agreeable and disagreeable contact, you can get to the point where you can enjoy that particular thing. So for example, if you go to a restaurant and they have a certain piece of chocolate cake, and every time you go there, you order this chocolate cake and you think it's amazing. And oh my goodness, you get so happy when you eat this chocolate cake. Well, you're not going to get to enlightenment by continuing to indulge in that and continuing to allow the mind to get these conditioned pleasant feelings every time you go there and eat chocolate cake. Because at some point, you're going to show up to that restaurant and they're not going to have your chocolate cake, because this chocolate cake is impermanent. And when you show up and they don't have your chocolate cake, because you got pleasant feelings from it, when you don't get your chocolate cake, you're going to get painful feelings. You're going to get angry or frustrated or sad. So what you do is when you see your mind attached to that chocolate cake and you're craving it so much, now you train your mind to distance yourself from that chocolate cake for a period of time, probably multiple months. Now, when you go to the restaurant, you choose not to order that chocolate cake. Or maybe you choose just not even to go to that restaurant for several months because you see your mind is attached to it. And now after 6 months or 3 months or however long it's been, when you can go to the restaurant and you can not order food, chocolate cake, and you can be just as peaceful, just as happy, just as content as you were with the chocolate cake as without it, now you might decide, I'd like to start eating chocolate cake again. But now you've trained your mind how to enjoy it while you're eating it without clinging to it and wanting it to be permanent. And now you're going to need to do this with each individual aspect of your life. And one of the ways to do that is to go ordain, where you strip away everything and you go live a very secluded life and you have very minimal things in your life. That's one way to do it, because you're distancing yourself from all these things very quickly. But your mind still needs to be trained to let go, because these monks, a lot of them still have cravings, desires, attachments. They're not actually enlightened because their mind is still holding on to certain things, right? Just because they're living in a temple and wearing an orange robe or shaving their hair doesn't mean that they're necessarily practicing the teachings very closely. So you can do this work from the household life if you choose. You don't have to. You could choose to ordain, but you also don't have to ordain. You can do this work from the household life, but you need to understand the wisdom of how to do this work. If you don't understand what the real work is to be done, you'll be very confused about what it is that you need to do. You'll look at it and say, oh, the Buddha left his family, he lived in the forest, maybe that's what I need to do to get to enlightenment. It's not the outside world that you need to change, it's the inner world, but you need the wisdom of how to do that. And as you get that wisdom, you'll see that you'll be able to do it from a household life, but you haven't had the guidance to be able to learn that wisdom up to this point. And that's why I share all the things that I share at no cost, so that students can get access to this, whether it's books, videos, podcasts, even personal guidance, classes, courses, retreats. You can learn all of these things at no cost, where I will help you and show you the path so that you can then practice it yourself and see the actual results. And that's one of the reasons why I give it away for free, because I know that it works 100%. I know that it works. And if you would like to explore that, you can see the truth for yourself. Everything's free. Everything that I offer is at no cost, whether it's classes, courses, retreats, videos, books, even personal guidance. Students can sit down and talk with me as many times as you like at no cost, and I will help you. Whether you're here in Chiang Mai or you're online, you can join our classes through the live stream. You can schedule appointments with me while you're here in Chiang Mai, or even when you go back home, you can schedule online through our website, and I will meet with you in Zoom. Because it's one thing learning in these classes, but it's a whole nother thing relating it to your personal life. So if you start with the first book, volume 1, and you start to slowly read it and you start to attend these classes, it's all available for free at no cost. And then as you need help with the various situations that you're experiencing, you can reach out by either asking questions in a live class. You can post on our Facebook group and I will help you by answering your question there. You can send me a private message, or you can schedule personal guidance and I will help you to gradually walk this path. It's you doing the work, but I need to be able to help you and guide you, almost like a tour guide, pointing out for you the things that you need to learn. Mm-hmm. Sure. I think your mic went off though. If you could turn it back on, that way the people online can hear you. Mm. Okay, sure. I'll help you. I'm going to summarize a bit of what you said because I'm not 100% sure that your mic was working. I was looking at the sound. So essentially what you're asking is, should you continue to be alone where you feel quite a bit of happiness, or should you follow other people's advice to get involved with other people and friends and stuff like this? So one of the things to keep in mind is that whenever you're getting unsolicited guidance from people, this is their ego that is coming in, and this is their craving to tell you what you should or shouldn't be doing. So anytime you're getting unsolicited guidance from people, right away you should discount that and just kind of like understand that this is their ego, this is their cravings, wanting your life to look like their life. In their mind, they think that they've got life figured out, and they think your life should be the same as their life. This is their mind craving permanence and wanting everybody to do things their way. And this is also their ego, their arrogance, stepping into your life and trying to tell you what you should or shouldn't be doing. This is really unwise for anybody to do, where you're giving unsolicited guidance to somebody else. This is just coming from one's own craving and one's own ego or conceit. So that's something to keep in mind when you're getting unsolicited guidance. If right now that you spend a lot of time alone and you say 80% of the time you're happy, or you feel quite a bit of happiness, that's great that you feel comfortable to be alone and you feel content and satisfied and fulfilled to be alone. But in order to be able to get to enlightenment, you're going to need to be able to be just as content and just as peaceful when you're alone as when you're with other people. If you can't experience peace and joy when you're with other people, then your mind isn't yet enlightened. By the time you get to enlightenment, you'll be able to be peaceful and joyful no matter what situation you're in. There will not even be the slightest little ickiness in the mind. So if you spend a lot of time alone and that's where you feel comfortable and you're happy with that, it would be advisable for you to start spending time in social situations that you can train your mind to be content and peaceful in those situations too. But you need some other wisdom on board. You're not just interested in just going out haphazardly and spending time with just anybody or everybody. You're not interested in just kind of jumping around like in, parties where there's alcohol and drugs and things like this. You need to wisely make choices about the environments that you're in. Everything that the Buddha taught is based on discernment or wise decision making. So yes, it's wise to go out and spend time with people and have a more well-rounded life. And the Buddha would talk about this as the middle way, but you need to make wise choices about who you choose to involve in your life. You're not creating this bubble for yourself, but you would like to include people in your life that are into wholesome things. And you would like to do this in a way that you're not being judgmental of other people, but instead you're just making wise choices based on things like the 5 precepts. If you learn the original teachings of the Buddha with his words, and you understand the 5 precepts, you understand how to create wholesome karma just based on those 5 precepts. And anybody that you include in your life, you would like to be sure that they're at least practicing to this level of detail. Even though they might not understand the 5 precepts and they don't understand them in that way, these are natural laws, and people have taught these all throughout history, and people have learned these. So like, for example, if someone was killing or stealing or having sexual misconduct or lying or taking substances that cause heedlessness, it's going to cause harmful things in their life. It's going to cause unwholesome results in their life. And if you choose to make that person part of your life, now their decisions to do those things are going to now affect you because you're choosing to include them in your life. So you would like to make wise decisions about who to involve in your life, but it would be wise and advisable for you to start training your mind at some point to be just as content and peaceful around other people as you are alone, because that's what's going to ultimately help your mind let go of any craving that might potentially exist of just being alone, because you can have craving to just be alone. And now this is going to cause the mind to only be able to experience peace in that situation where you would like to be able to experience peace and joy in all situations. You're welcome. Looks like this gentleman has a question over here too. I'm going to look online, see if we have any questions coming in. Welcome to all of you guys online. Nice to see you guys this morning. You have a question, sir?
Yeah, but before I start, I want to thank you for all you do.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for your teachings. Thank you for what you became.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a little confusion. Like we say that Buddha, the last Buddha was Gotama the Buddha 2,500 years ago. Mm-hmm. And then you speak a lot about the many enlightened beings. And in your speech, we feel like enlightenment is accessible for everyone. Although there has been 2,500 years since the last Buddha. So I want to ask you, what is the difference between Buddhahood and enlightenment?
Mm-hmm. So the idea of Buddhahood is actually not something that the Buddha taught. What you'll hear in other places is they'll talk about Buddhahood or Buddha nature, or they'll say everybody is a Buddha. This isn't actually true. An individual who's a Buddha is what I was describing earlier over here, where an individual that's a Buddha is going to meet all of these criteria. An enlightened being is going to experience the peace and the joy and all those qualities of enlightenment that I talked about, but they're going to need teachers and guides to be able to help. So you're going to need teachers and guides to be able to help you get to enlightenment. So you would be able to be an enlightened being where you're experiencing all the qualities of enlightenment, but you wouldn't be considered a Buddha at that point. It's a Buddha and an enlightened being are different. That a Buddha would have gotten to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. An individual who's an enlightened being, which is everyone else in the world, they're going to need teachers and guides to be able to help them. And this is the main difference between what a Buddha is versus an average enlightened being. So yes, enlightenment is accessible to everybody and anybody that is interested to be able to get to it. If you can intellectually learn, you can reflect, independently verify, and you can practice to be able to train your mind, you can get to enlightenment. There's no reason why you wouldn't be able to. But if you had some kind of like traumatic brain injury where you weren't able to intellectually learn something, this individual wouldn't necessarily be able to get to enlightenment during their life, but they would still be able to get to enlightenment at death potentially. But at that point, an individual who's gotten to enlightenment through the training of their mind, they would have teachers and guides. Like all of you guys are going to need teachers and guides. So at that point, you would be an enlightened being, but not a Buddha. But a Buddha is very rare in the world, this type of individual that can get to enlightenment by themselves and then meets all these criteria. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so now let me share with you guys what the teachings of the Buddha are not, because this is one of the ways that I help people to learn what something is I teach them what something is not. So the teachings of the Buddha are not a collection of beliefs, doctrine, concepts, opinions, or views that will produce a pleasant afterlife if you believe in them, and an unpleasant afterlife if you do not believe in them. In fact, the teachings of the Buddha don't have any belief in them whatsoever, because with belief, you don't know what's true or what's false. You're just believing it because someone convinced you to believe it, or you convinced yourself to believe it. Belief won't get you to enlightenment. It's kind of like if you grew up with the idea of Santa Claus. I don't know how many of you guys grew up with this in your homes as you were growing up. I grew up with the belief in Santa Claus. And when I found out that Santa Claus didn't exist, boy, was my life shaken up at 8 years old, right? Because I was just believing this for so long. And now I realized my beliefs were untrue. And now my mind was all shaken up because of it. So you can't get to a completely stable and steady and content mind through belief, because when you find out that your beliefs are false, your mind's going to be shaken up. So what you need to be able to do is get to wisdom, and you do that through investigation and examination of teachings, through independently verifying whether they're true or false in your reflection, and then by practicing, by integrating the teachings into your life and actually training your mind and uprooting these pollutions. That's what's going to lead to enlightenment. So the teachings of the Buddha are not beliefs, doctrine, concepts, opinions, and views. That's not what the Buddha actually taught. He's teaching true reality, and you'll be able to independently verify that true reality. Also, I don't consider the teachings of the Buddha a religion. You may consider them a religion. It all depends on how you think about what a religion is. If you think about religion as there's one person at the top telling everybody else what they should or shouldn't be doing, or if you think about religion as rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship, or if you think about religion as rules and commandments, this isn't the teachings of the Buddha. There isn't one person at the top of Buddhism telling everybody else what they should or shouldn't be doing. In the original teachings of the Buddha, there are not any rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship. As soon as you see those kinds of things, you can be assured that that's not the teachings of the Buddha. You can see in his original teachings that he never taught any of those things, because he's teaching you to cultivate wisdom. That's what actually transforms the mind, is getting to wisdom. And there is no rites, rituals, ceremonies, or worship that is going to produce wisdom. So there's no amount of water that I can sprinkle on you that is going to cultivate wisdom for you. There's no amount of strings that I can tie on your wrist that is going to help you to be able to cultivate wisdom. There's none of that kind of stuff in the teachings of the Buddha. He mentions it, and he mentions that it was going on during his lifetime, but he shares that he doesn't do any of those things because he's guiding you to cultivate wisdom about these natural laws. And it's through making wise decisions based in these natural laws that are going to lead to more and more wholesome results in your life. So if this is the way you think about religion, with rules and commandments that are going to create a peaceful world for everybody, this isn't the teachings of the Buddha. So I don't think about the teachings of the Buddha as a religion. If you think about punishments and rewards, and this is what you've been taught, the Buddha's teachings aren't based in those things. He's helping you to understand the natural laws. He's not giving you these punishments and rewards from different things that you might choose to do in your day-to-day life. Also, there's nothing mystical or magical or superstitious or auspicious in the teachings of the Buddha. You can see it very clearly in his words where he says there is nothing auspicious in his teachings. There's none of this superstition or magical or mystical things in his teachings. Again, you might be exposed to those kinds of things in other places, but if you study his original teachings, you'll be able to see that those are misunderstandings, and you can come to understand what's truly going to lead to your enlightenment. His teachings are not something to attempt to force others to do or convince other people to do. This path is all about your growing and your development. Maybe one of the ways you might think about this is the Buddha's teachings are a self-help program that are guiding you to an improved results within your own mind. So you're not going out into the world and trying to convince other people or force other people to do anything particular. This is for you to grow and learn and develop. If you spent any time on social media, you might see these little short, catchy phrases where people will attribute those to the Buddha. Those are not the teachings of the Buddha. About 99.9% of the time when I've researched these, they aren't even the words of the Buddha, that they're actually coming from other people, sometimes in the last 100 or 200 years, but they'll kind of put the name the Buddha on it to give it more credibility. The Buddha has very deep, profound teachings that are in discourses and that you need to study those. These short little catchy phrases aren't actually the teachings of the Buddha. Also, the teachings of the Buddha aren't stuck in a cultural past that degrades or judges other people. Sometimes people think, oh, the Buddha taught 2,500 years ago. Surely he degraded women, right? Or he degraded minorities, right? No, he didn't. He actually taught people to have appreciation and gratitude and respect, politeness, kindness, friendliness with all beings. You can see in his teachings where he's teaching men how to be respectful towards women, and he's teaching women how to be respectful towards men. And this is based in the natural law, not as rules or commandments. He's just showing you what it takes to be able to have harmonious relationships based on the natural laws of cause and effect. So the Buddha is not degrading or denigrating anybody whatsoever, including women or minorities or anything like this. In terms of the Buddha's teachings, he talks about this ideal life to live, that you've essentially gotten to this human realm and that this is the ideal existence to be able to make your way to enlightenment. And he talks about how rare it is that an individual would actually get to this human state. So this is actually some of the words of the Buddha, and I'll read it to you so you can see how rare it is that you're in this human state. And it's important not to allow this life to go to waste, and that you don't be complacent during your life, that you train and grow and develop to be able to make your way to enlightenment. This is titled Rare That One Obtains the Human State. Monks, suppose that this great earth had become one mass of water, and a man would throw a ring with a single hole upon it. An easterly wind would drive it westward. A westerly wind would drive it eastward. A northerly wind would drive it southward. A southerly wind would drive it northward. There was a blind turtle which would come to the surface of once every 100 years. What do you think, monks? Would that blind turtle coming to the surface once every 100 years insert its neck into that ring with a single hole? It would be rare, venerable sir, that the blind turtle coming to the surface once every 100 years would insert its neck into that ring with a single hole. So too, monks, it is rare that one obtains the human state, rare that a Tathagata, an Arahant, a perfectly enlightened one arises in the world, rare that the teachings and discipline proclaimed by the Tathagata shines in the world. You have obtained that human state, monks. A Tathagata, an Arahant, a perfectly enlightened one has arisen in the world. The teachings and discipline proclaimed by the Tathagata shines in the world. Therefore, monks, an effort should be made to understand. This is discontentedness. An effort should be made to understand. This is the cause of discontentedness. An effort should be made to understand. This is the elimination of discontentedness. An effort should be made to understand. This is the way leading to the elimination of discontentedness. So here you can see the Buddha describing how rare it is to get into this human state. He's also talking about how rare it is that a Buddha exists in the world, right? This is what a Tathagata is. A Tathagata, what this word means is one who's discovered discovered the truth, or one who discerns the truth, or one who shares the truth. He would refer to himself as the Tathagata, right? And you can see how rare it is for a Buddha to come into the world, right? And there's other discourses where he talks about that too. But essentially what he's getting to here is he's saying, don't allow this life to go to waste. Don't be complacent. He's guiding you to this teaching right here. This is the Four Noble Truths, or at least he's pointing to the Four Noble Truths, because that's the very beginning of his teachings. This is where you understand the problem in the mind, the cause of the problem, the elimination of it, and the path forward. And you can see that in four simple statements, not these particular statements, but if you walk through the Four Noble Truths with a teacher who can guide you in understanding it, you'll be able to have a breakthrough to being able to understand that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. Because as long as you go around the world thinking it's other people that are causing these feelings, you'll never actually be able to solve it. So he's saying, hey, you've got this really rare human life. Don't allow it to go to waste. Don't be complacent. Study these Four Noble Truths and have this breakthrough to understanding what's causing these feelings, so that then you can actually eliminate them. And that's what the Buddha's guiding individuals to do. That's why rites, rituals, ceremonies, and worship, it doesn't lead to enlightenment, because it's not going to help you cultivate the wisdom of how to transform your mind and purify your mind. So lastly, just kind of talking about what the teachings of the Buddha are, and then I'll open up to whatever questions you guys have, is, as I shared earlier, it's to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. But you need to be able to understand what is actually hurting you is inside your own mind. And that's where the Four Noble Truths is the very first beginning teaching that you would need to be able to learn and grow and develop. So you can heal from what hurt you so that you never need to hurt ever again. You don't need to have these painful feelings. You can opt out of these painful feelings. Just like a species like a lizard or a snake will evolve and become a better and better species, the human beings can do that too. We can evolve to a better and better species where we no longer experience anger and sadness and frustration and all these other discontent feelings. But each individual needs to decide for themselves that's what they're interested in, is getting away from those painful feelings so that you can enjoy all aspects of life. Not just enjoy this piece of chocolate cake, but you can enjoy when you have the chocolate cake. You can enjoy when you don't have the chocolate cake too. But if you can only be happy when you have the chocolate cake, that means that you have all these criteria in your mind, and you can only be happy when those things happen. When my mom and dad does this, when my boss does this, when the weather is this, when my bank account is this, if I'm alone, any of these other things, if you have all these criteria, essentially you're sabotaging your ability to be happy, that it's shrinking and becoming less and less and less because you have all these criteria that need to be true in order for you to experience happiness. But when you get rid of all of that, then your mind can be happy and joyful no matter what situation that you're in. And this comes through training of the mind. And this is how you heal from what hurt you. So there's a core central teaching called the Eightfold Path. This is what you would like to learn using the original words of the Buddha. And then there's other teachings that plug into this. In this book series that I have, all the resources that I share, you'll be able to get access to them to be able to help you to do that. So the reason why to study the teachings of the Buddha, since that's what this chapter is all about, is to get to enlightenment, to heal from what hurt you so that you never need to experience painful feelings ever again. And this is what an enlightened being would be able to experience, and there's no reason why you can't get to enlightenment these days. So do you guys have any questions on anything that I've been sharing here today? Remember, if you guys could use the mics or online, if you guys could put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, then I'll be able to answer your question. So does anybody have a question? Eamon has a question.
Thank you, teacher. I think I have a question. I think the mind has something, but I'd just like to build it. I think this lady asked two really relevant to me questions that resonate with me very much. And I started to think about like decisions I make daily, or not so much decisions, but thoughts that go through my mind and how that may relate to the middle way. I mean, would I be right in assuming there is no one middle way, is there? I don't think the Buddha prescribed that, there's one prescription for a good life. So, I don't know how to form the question.
Let me answer that first, and then you can think about the next part, because I can see your thinking. So he did actually teach the middle way as being the Eightfold Path. this is the middle way. So like you've learned the Eightfold Path with me before, all those individual steps. As you're training your mind in those factors, it's moving the mind to the middle. But you shouldn't think the middle way is like everybody lives exactly the same kind of life. You can have 10 enlightened beings that are facing the exact same situation, and they will potentially come up with 10 different ways to handle that particular situation. Getting to enlightenment isn't that everybody's doing things exactly the same. It's just that by the time you've gotten to enlightenment, you've moved your mind to this higher consciousness through purifying the mind, and now you can think through wise decision making, and you can make wise decisions in any given situation. So coming to the middle is to practice the Eightfold Path, training your mind, getting rid of the pollution of mind. And the Buddha also talked about this balanced lifestyle, right? That you live this balanced life. So what that balance looks like is going to be different. Like how much time you spend alone versus how much time you spend with other people. That's going to look different and unique for each individual person. But for all enlightened beings, they will be just as peaceful spending time with people as without people. But in terms of how much time you spend with one group of people versus another, that's going to be unique to each individual person. But the practicing the middle way is to be able to be peaceful and joyful no matter what situation you are in. And it's the Eightfold Path that's going to lead you to that. That's the middle way, is practicing the Eightfold Path.
Thank you. Yeah, because as the more I investigate and establish what this means to me or what it may look like, the more I feel I'm at odds with, I don't know, general thinking, common wisdom or common way of thinking out there. And I'm often met with the idea of, oh, am I getting life wrong somehow? Because maybe similar to this idea, I think, yeah, I can withdraw more. Whereas I think once other people recognize that in me, there's a sense that, oh no, you're getting this wrong. Mm-hmm. And I don't feel I am.
Yeah.
And then this idea, and my withdrawal from things isn't necessarily because I want to find that perfect bubble that I think you described. I just think it feels a bit more authentic for me to be like that. And that's what I'm striving for. And the idea of a householder life and an ordained life, I've considered ordination and not in the view of thinking, oh, what a relief it would be or how great that would be. I think there would be huge challenges to living in an ordained life, perhaps even more so as a foreigner. But as I get older, I realize that, of course, we don't know how long we have left, but I have limited time left now in this life, and I'd like to use it wisely and skillfully. So I think a desire for me, which I'm trying to almost dissuade myself from, of maybe ordination, is would also be wisdom. So figuring out the balance between, the decisions I make. Am I avoiding something, or is it a wise decision? I mean, that's why I live in Chiang Mai now and not in London, because I think this is more conducive here to understanding this work. Mm-hmm. So that was a wise decision I made, to leave London, to sell up and come here and to do this work. And, I found you and so things like that. Sorry, there is a question in here somewhere, but so when does, doing this work in inspection, I establish what my middle way is, and then to make wise decisions on that and not be,
One of the things I can share based on what you were sharing at the beginning is as you are practicing these teachings more and more closely and your mind's moving to a higher consciousness, it's becoming more pure, more clean, is that, you're going to be at odds with the common things that people do in the world. I wouldn't call it common wisdom. But what people do commonly, they're killing, they're stealing, they're having sexual misconduct, they're lying, they're taking intoxicants and drugs and substances that cause heedlessness. And you're going to be disinterested in that because you're going to see the truth that those things don't lead to wholesome results. So you're going to have constantly people around you telling you that what you are doing is unwise, because to them, what they're doing is the wise thing. But if you talk to them and you're like, hey, do you experience anger or sadness or frustration? They're going to say, oh yeah, they do. So they haven't figured out life, but yet they want everybody to be doing the things that they're doing, because it reaffirms for them that what they're doing is somehow wise. And when they see you kind of ascending and moving closer to this enlightened mental state, even though they don't necessarily know what that is, but you're becoming more and more wholesome, walking towards the light, the darkness is going to want to pull you back down, because you're a constant reminder to individuals that what they're doing is unwise. So say, for example, you're around a bunch of people who do stealing and sexual misconduct and lying, taking drugs and intoxicants and things like this, and you start stepping away from that slowly but surely, they're going to try to pull you back in, because you're a constant reminder to them that what they're doing is unwise. And the last thing they're interested in is someone from their group stepping away to do things that are wholesome, because then to a certain degree, they have to acknowledge that what they're doing is unwise. So it pains them to see someone from their group step away, and they think the way to solve that is to pull that person back in, rather than realize, Amen is starting to do things more wisely. He seems so much more happier, so much more content. Maybe I should get involved in that too and see what I can learn about this myself. Instead, the way that they think to solve their painful feelings is to pull you back in and pull you down into what they're doing. So you'll have people around you that will constantly tell you that what you're doing is unwise, but they just don't understand it. And because of their own ego, they're thinking that what they're doing is the wise way to do things. So if you know the truth, and you know that you're experiencing more peace and more joy, you're experiencing more harmonious relationships with new friends that you're meeting and things like this, you don't have to pay any attention to what these people are saying, and just choose to go away from that, because they're just going to keep trying to pull you down into the unwise and unwholesome things that they're doing.
Thank you. So a wise decision to remove myself maybe from a certain situation wouldn't necessarily be aversion then. I'm not thinking, this is...
Yeah, what aversion is where you're choosing to move away from a situation or from a person, where you're pushing that away. And when you're pushing that away, your mind is thinking that this is going to solve my problem. That if I push this person or I push this situation away, it's going to solve my painful feelings. This is aversion. You can actually choose through wise decision making to step away from a relationship or to step away from a certain situation while maintaining right view. From the outside looking in, it looks exactly the same. This person is walking away from a relationship. The difference of whether it's aversion or not is what's going on in your own mind. If you're pushing away this person, meaning ending the relationship and walking away, thinking that that's going to solve your painful feelings, that's aversion. You have wrong view, that the painful feelings aren't coming from this person. It's coming from your own cravings, desires, attachments. But if you choose to walk away from this relationship, realizing that any painful feelings you have are coming from your own cravings, desires, attachments, but out of wise decision-making, discernment, you're choosing to walk away from this relationship, realizing that you still need to eliminate certain cravings, desires, attachments in your own mind. You can do this, and it looks the same from the outside looking in, but internally, your mind is maintaining responsibility for your own feelings and eliminating your cravings, desires, attachments. You realize that ending this relationship isn't going to solve your painful feelings, and that's still having right view, and that's not aversion. You see the difference? Yeah. Okay. All right. So we have some questions coming in here online. Sorry, I think it's Gala. She usually comes here. She's saying, how does getting to enlightenment at death look like? Essentially, what this person would be doing is they would be gradually diminishing the 10 fetters without even necessarily realizing that's what they're doing. Like if you look at natural life, for example, and someone who's died naturally, like, Gala, like some of the teachings, because you've been learning with me, like the 10 fetters, like personal existence view and some of these others, you can see that as you age, one of the first things you're less interested in is clinging to this self-image of who you are as a person, right? You kind of gradually ease into death for some people, where they become more and more peaceful and more joyful because they're disinterested in clinging to certain things. Oftentimes when we get older, we start giving away our material possessions to people, that the mind isn't clinging to these things. You're not clinging to the health of this body anymore. So natural life tends to lean towards enlightenment at death, but it's not that everybody who's going to die naturally will experience enlightenment, but that's what it essentially looks like, that a person is still eliminating the 10 fetters, but they're doing it gradually just through the natural cycle of life and what kind of happens at life. Chris is asking, Teacher David, what does the word auspicious mean in relation to the teachings not being auspicious? It's like mystical, magical things. It's like, superstition, where someone's just believing in things. There's nothing auspicious or superstitious or mystical or magical about the teachings of the Buddha. Okay, let me see. I don't see any other questions anywhere. And I don't think we have any here either. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just end class by thanking all of you guys. I appreciate your interest to learn and grow and develop on the path. If you guys would like to learn more, there's plenty of opportunity for you to do that. The next class that I'm going to be teaching here is going to be on Wednesday. I'm going to be teaching loving kindness meditation and doing that as a session with you guys, and then opening up to any and all questions. It's going to be like a free-form question day where I do loving kindness meditation with you, which is designed to essentially eliminate anger, hatred, and ill will, and all those lesser versions like frustration, agitation, and annoyance. By the time you get to enlightenment, you won't even have the slightest dislike towards other beings. Right now, you might have dislike towards certain people. If they meet your expectations, you like them. But if they don't meet your expectations, you dislike them. This is actually coming from your own mind. And you can get to the point where you don't have that, where you can have love and kindness for all beings. So it's loving kindness meditation that's going to help you rewire your mind to be able to experience that. So if you'd like to do that on Wednesday, I'll be doing that with students on Wednesday, because it'll even help you to eliminate any kind of degrading or diminishing thoughts you have in your own mind towards yourself. Sometimes people have like an inner dialogue where they're experiencing this degrading, diminishing thoughts towards themselves. And this loving kindness meditation will help you to eliminate that. So that's going to be happening on Wednesday. On Friday, we're going to be having game night, where if you'd like to come here on Friday at 6 p.m., we have a social event where we have games and we have snacks and things like this. We just recently bought a popcorn machine, so we're going to be out here making popcorn. I think my son's going to come in and make some popcorn for all of you guys. So if you guys would like to come and have a social event and spend time with each other at 6 p.m. on Friday, we're going to be doing that. So whatever you guys decide to do today, have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. Perhaps we'll see you next time. Sawadee-khap. Sawadee-khap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.